He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome to The Alex Marlow Show. I'm glad you're here. I'm hoping that you had a really nice Columbus Day. It felt like a real holiday, I got to say. It did seem like a lot less got done in the news world, which made me think that people are celebrating Columbus Day. And our Italian explorer, Christopher Columbus, who we love to celebrate and venerate here, especially Breitbart News. So we like the Italian connection, we like explorers, and we like the fact that he made the North American hemisphere a much better place. But also does tick off all the right people, all the libs. Ayanna Pressley saying we are all on stolen land and Republicans are trying to whitewash history. First of all, we're not trying to whitewash any history. History is complicated. And I just always ask, are these Democrats, do they ever cite another country on earth that is allegedly not on stolen land, or is it just America? Are we the only country that's on stolen land? Or do they care about any other country? We're the only one they care about. That seems to be the case. So always kind of gives away the game when you think of it that way. Today, we've got some big stuff happening right now. I know the whole cabinet's gathered, meeting with Milei from Argentina. So we'll have some coverage for you out of Breitbart News. And then people are just arriving at the White House for a Charlie Kirk receiving the Medal of Freedom. I'll try to play some clips for you tomorrow on that, though it'll be probably the timing of this podcast, not great, because you've probably seen a lot of those, but I'll share some of them with you on tomorrow's show as well. Very cool. The highest civilian honor and well-deserved for our friend, Charlie Kirk, who, of course, got to start writing at Breitbart and was a colleague at Salem, and now has gone to a better place. And his legacy, we must fight for it every single day. And it's a great move by President Trump to do this. Looking forward to the speeches, things like that. So we'll have that coverage for you on tomorrow's show. And also tomorrow, we're trying to get Tricia McLaughlin from Department of Homeland Security. She's supposed to be on today, but we had technical difficulties. And maybe it's for the best, because Governor J.B. Pritzker is suggesting that Democrats may try to prosecute ICE agents. So literally trying to lawfare against those who are trying to enforce the law. It just proves everything that I wrote about in Breaking the Law is that the Democrats hate law and order. They hate democracy. They just use these words to try to get what they want politically, and they really just want an authoritarian system where they do whatever is necessary to preserve their political power. They don't have first principles. Their first principle is power and victory. That's all they want to do. And if they feel as though the other side is trying to enforce laws and trying to get people deported, trying to come up with some rationality to our immigration system, they view it as offensive, and they're not going to tolerate it, even if it's good for them, even if they should be thanking Trump for providing the resources necessary for them to clean up their town. It doesn't matter, or clean up their state in Pritzker's case. He sees it as a political place to apply resistance, and that's what he's going to do. All right, so we're in day 14 of the government shutdown. Trump is trying to remove pressure points, as I discussed on yesterday's show quite a bit, and prolonging the shutdown is not necessarily going to backfire against President Trump. He was able to get the military paid, which I think takes away a lot of the Democrats' leverage, and he's going to try to use tariff revenue as well as some other sources of trying to scrounge up some money to get things like children's food stamps and the WIC program. There's a pressure point on TSA agents because we don't want to have travel shut down, because that could potentially backfire on us, I don't think. So we get this kind of looming sort of Damocles coming up on November the 1st, where some Americans are reportedly going to be receiving letters that their premiums are going to go up, or perhaps they could lose health care coverage. I'll tell you just that Obamacare is just a curse that dogs us. And we tried to fix it with Paul Ryan in 2017, and it didn't work out. And it was not what I would have recommended President Trump focus on at the time. It didn't work out anyway, and then we've basically been stuck with that. The Supreme Court bailed us out a little bit with the individual mandate, but that system has haunted us in so many ways, and that is going to be a big focus. But overall, as we talked to Brandon Gill about, Democrats are really trying to demand that illegal aliens get health care. Like, that's what it's about. And they do get health care, just insurance is really the main thing. If they show up, one of the hospitals my wife's worked at over the years, then they'll be getting care. But the issue is, do they get insurance for it, which is really just codifying them being here, even though they're here illegally, which we can't do. We can't do that. So I'll keep giving you updates. I'll try to mix in more political guests than usual. Sometimes I feel like with a political guest, I can do a better job summarizing it for you guys. I don't need to take 20 minutes of your time, but that's why I'm trying to only get really good and interesting ones, and I'll continue to do that. We'll try to bring more in during the rest of the week. Next up, I will say, give you an update on Israel and the peace process. And before I do, I will mention we do have a great sponsor of today's show, great sponsor of the show in general, the International Fellowship of Christian and Jews. And I want you to think about this. Everything precious in the Christian faith comes through Israel. The promise God made to Abraham, the covenants he established, the law that shows us his character, the prophets who spoke his words, the gospel that transformed the world. All of it, every bit of it came through Israel. In standing with Israel, we celebrate our shared roots and the enduring legacy of God's work through his chosen people. As Christians, we owe an immense debt of gratitude to the Jewish people and their role in preserving and passing down these shared truths. Through their faithfulness, often in the face of great adversity, they've been instrumental in bringing the knowledge of God to the world. When I support the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, I'm not just helping people in need, I'm honoring those who gave us our spiritual foundation. I'm saying thank you to the people who preserve God's word for us. Discovering the top reasons why Christians all over the world support Israel, you can go to ifcj.org. That's ifcj.org. Really worthwhile cause. I recommend everyone check it out. All right, so Bill Clinton said President Trump and others deserve great credit for the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal, which I think is really interesting because Bill Clinton is willing to poke the party establishment in the eye. Kamala Harris put out some sort of a statement. She put out a big statement on Middle East peace yesterday for some reason. I guess maybe yesterday was hostage day, so maybe that's why. But omitted President Trump. She can't admit that President Trump did anything. I noted on yesterday's show how Joe Biden and Antony Blinken trying to take credit for Trump somehow extending their Middle East policy, which he did not. Trump has taken a 180-degree different approach on Middle East peace, as I've gone through in great length in Breaking Biden in my writings over the last couple of years. Blinken and Biden were disastrous in the region, and Harris, of course, gets no credit. She couldn't even handle the stuff in her own portfolio, which Israel Middle East peace was not. So she, of course, gets no credit, and it's just great because then Bill Clinton comes in and says, yeah, well, we kind of got to doff our hat to Trump, right? I mean, don't we? I mean, he got the job done. Leaders have been talking about this for, 60 years, 70 years? This has been going on. There's been my whole adult life and then some. There's been chaos in the region. And then we're the closest we can get to a lasting peace that we've seen. So, and look, there's a lot to do. I was reading the Jerusalem Post this morning, and Hamas had, as of this morning, only returned, I think, like 4 of the remains of the deceased hostages, and they're not making it easy to get the rest. They're saying they might not even know any. And so this is going to make Israel not want to follow through on certain parts of its agreements when it comes to peace. So Trump is also demanding that Hamas will disarm, or else we're going to disarm them violently. So for Trump to say that shows that he is not 100% confident that Hamas is going to disarm. And I said that this is going to be a weird sticking point because, again, for Hamas to totally disarm means they'll be totally powerless because Hamas's entire power is driven by the fact that they're armed. So, and they're also make them very vulnerable to all of them getting killed. So the Red Cross is also out there retrieving hostage remains in Gaza, and it seems like that's going to be a big headache as we could have anticipated. So the deal is, the ink is still wet. I'm not saying it's not signed, it's not moving forward, but I'm saying that the ink is definitely, you could smudge that thing. So we had to keep an eye on it very closely just to make sure that there is follow through on this. But you knew that some of the details were going to get hashed out even after some of the celebrations took place. But the main thing is once the live hostages were back, Israel and President Trump are in the driver's seat to see this thing through to a positive conclusion. But Israel is entitled to, from the terms of the deal, the remainder of the hostages. Let's see how long it takes to get that. Could be weeks. And Hamas is supposed to disarm, though, as I mentioned on the show a couple of times. They never really fully signed off on disarming. I don't see any evidence that they said they would disarm. So let's see if they will, because they're going to have to some extent, but I'm sure they're not willing to completely. So This is where we are on this. I got a clip of, first of all, I got Trump talking about the hostages. Well, why don't I share some of this with you?
20 Israelis who were held hostage by Hamas for more than 2 years were released today as part of your peace plan. What did that moment mean to you?
Well, everything. You see the enthusiasm really beyond Israel, all over the world. I've never seen anything like it. And I think it just means peace for the Middle East. And it somehow represents, they become representatives of peace for the Middle East. And that's why it's gone like this. Nobody's ever seen anything quite like it.
Talk me through how this deal came together. There were very intense negotiations. Our reporting indicates that you were personally on the phone to get this across the finish line. What happened, and when did you know that Hamas was going to release the hostages?
Well, I'll tell you, I think it really started when we took out the nuclear capability of Iran. When you look at what they had, you couldn't have made this deal if somebody's sitting over there with a nuclear weapon over your head. And I think when we did that, and there were other obviously very warlike things that we did over the course of 4 or 5 years, if setting the table. But when we did when we took away that destructive capability from Iran.
It's just great. I think he's right about this, too, because Iran, of course, is one of the biggest funders of Hamas and other terrorists in the region. And there is always this sense that they've got, with nuclear capability, it's a really powerful backup. So anytime that Hamas or Hezbollah or anyone that is engaging terrorism, particularly targeting Israel and Jews in the region, then you always know that there's Iran in the background who potentially has nuclear capability and ability to attack at that level and create that level of devastation. It certainly changes the dynamics, the power dynamics in the area. And even the United States doesn't want that headache. It's not to say that we wouldn't beat Iran in a war. It's that who would want that sort of a headache? And so when Trump's saying that they're no longer a threat in that way, it's very important because a lot of these terrorists then lost their most powerful ally, or their most powerful ally has been neutralized. And the point I made at least once recently on the show, probably a couple times, is that now it seems as though Israel doesn't really have a lot of purely hostile actors in the region, which is completely unheard of. Of course, there are countries that don't like Israel. There are countries that are going to do a lot of trash talk. There's going to take issue with them in a lot of ways. But now with basically Iran sort of neutralized militarily and Hamas completely neutralized as of now, then Israel seems like they don't have any imminent threats. So they have adversaries, but they don't have imminent threats. And because of that, that means that we've got an opportunity, I think, to really start forging some economic partnerships. And I think that's the next step here. And that's where things have got to get to right away. And I think this was part of the brilliance of the Abraham Accords, which is really simplistic. A simplistic summary is going over there and making sure people are doing business with one another, making sure people are cooperating. And if you want any foreign aid from America, if you want us to do business with America and America's allies, then you got to cooperate. And just getting people intertwined financially, economically, in terms of real estate, all these things. If you do that, then people are just less likely to fight with one another. And that's the basic underlying principle. It's so simple that you think, well, how could that possibly work? Well, it really does, because unless you're just so committed to some religious or ideological warfare, which some people in the region are, then you're not going to interfere if you've got this ability to make money and to enrich yourself and to bring peace and prosperity to your homeland. So I think Trump knows that. I think his foreign policy team knows that. And I think that could be where this is headed, which is why we got to see some deals cut, I think, right away. And I think solidifying the peace with commerce, with economic development, I think that's going to be really big. And if they could do that, and maybe Gaza can be the symbol of that, Gaza-Lago, which I think Trump's taken ownership over, that he's going to be in charge there. If that's the case, then we really have a big opportunity to create not just peace, but a lasting peace, a sustainable peace. Because if everyone's getting rich, then they're probably not going to be fighting with one another. So that's the next thing. Can we make the Middle East rich again? We can make a hat, make the Middle East richy. It's been very rich, but it's it's concentrated. A lot of oligarchic countries there. Okay, so one thing I'm also looking forward to when it comes to Israel and the hostages being released is I want to get a better sense. I want to get to know some of the hostages and what they went through. We had a really big report from Aaron Klein at Breitbart News. From Hamas tunnels to freedom, former hostage recounts brutal treatment of two men freed in the Trump-brokered deal. And he goes through some of the torture that took place. And there's reading from the piece, every 24 hours, the guards came down to taunt them. In a good case, they just threw the food and water and left. Most of the time, they shouted, beat us, especially the young ones, trying to confuse us. To destroy any sense of time, the guards told them there is no time here. The lights were left on for days or suddenly cut for 15 hours, plunging the hostages into complete blackness. You couldn't see your own hand, one of them said. At times, the abuse nearly killed them. They set fire in front of the iron door and directed smoke into the tunnel, he recalled. We were minutes away from suffocating to death. So we need to have a full accounting of these atrocities. One of the witnesses said they put a surgical mask over our eyes so we couldn't see. And after 20 minutes, the air changed. We were rushed downhill, and I understood we were entering a tunnel, my worst fear, to be buried alive. And so this is the type of stuff that's going on. And I want to get full recountings of this. There's some images coming out, some video coming out, but it's important to understand this because people moved on from October the 7th way too quickly. And I know it's hard to deal with the atrocities that took place on October the 7th. But a lot of people just really, really were eager to move on. I think part of it just because of a lot of the anti-Israel biases in certain corners of the world in terms of geopolitics, media, et cetera. So one free hostage did a interview with Biana Goladraga. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't know where she's at now, but she's a establishment media journalist. You'll recognize her when you see her, those of you watching on the streams. But check out this.
Yes, it's him. He got me out. He got the hostages out. Before we felt like nothing is happening, and I remember ever since he came into the road, they were very scared of him. Yeah, they wanted
who?
The terrorists.
We're afraid of Trump.
Yeah, they wanted Kamala to be chosen, to be elected.
You talked politics with them?
Yeah. They wanted Kamala to be elected. But as soon as Donald Trump was elected, they understood that he wants to bring the hostages back home. Yeah.
And this fits so well with what I've written about Joe Biden in the past. So just to be, those of you who couldn't make out with the accents, the terrorists wanted Kamala Harris to win, according to a former hostage. And they were scared of Donald Trump. So this is the peace through strength approach. If you fear the American leader, the world is a more peaceful place. And I 100% believe October the 7th, the attack happened partially because Joe Biden was so weak and people did not fear him around the world. And Biden's whole administration, it's not just Biden. It's just Kamala Harris, it's Tony Blinken, it's the entire apparatus, the woke generals. So this is what is so powerful and important about Trump's legacy and his ability to conduct geopolitics is that people do fear him. The fact that he's unpredictable, the fact that he's tough, the fact that he holds people to account. And this is firsthand witness that terrorists didn't like him. So they were afraid of Trump. They wanted Kamala Harris to win. They wanted to maintain the American weakness in the region. That is what the terrorists want. So again, I don't want us fighting wars all the time, but I'll tell you, Trump has a great track record of ending wars, getting wars ended, and you do it through strength, through muscularity. So ironically, stronger military, stronger leadership, stronger generals, that's what keeps us safe. So pretty awesome stuff there, and shocked the interviewer, which is always great. Always an added plus there. All right, let's change gears. Let's talk about the lawfare here. We've got a couple of things developing. NBC says there seems to be some significant evidence that could lead to an indictment for John Bolton. So related to misconduct around classified information. It makes sense to me after what they did with Trump. This is the whole thing that with the case that the left is obsessed with. This came up in my C-SPAN interview I did last week in Washington, is that, Trump had those classified documents and he really shouldn't have. Okay, sure, maybe. But the thing is, he could have declassified them at any point. And there are so many senators and generals and vice presidents and former presidents who had classified documents and either did not have any ability ever to declassify them or did similar stuff to Trump. And they were never got more than a wrist slap ever. Joe Biden had classified documents in a garage from his Senate days next to his classic Corvette where Hunter Biden could have accessed them. So all you need to know. You had generals, CIA directors, all these people with no business ever having classified documents, and they tried to get Trump locked up over them. So of course, that's a place where Trump is going to be able to look and have the total moral high ground to bust anyone who did anything improper after they went through Melania's underwear drawer, Barron's Peloton room. They used a surprise raid by the FBI on Mar-a-Lago. And then that turned into the Jack Smith special counsel, 18, 19 months of unfettered access to documents, harassment, just making Trump's life a living heck and the whole family's life a living heck. And it was all unconstitutional. They used the classified documents as pretext to get that going with an unconstitutional special counsel appointment to harass Trump on two fronts, by the way, because Jack Smith had two cases. He did J6 case too. It was all bogus, all of it. So good stuff there. And then we know that Tish James is under indictment as well for mortgage fraud. Another one where she went after Trump for alleged mortgage fraud. So this is the whole thing. Trump is just hoisting people on their own petards or by their own petards, whatever the expression is. You guys, I don't even like the expression, but you guys know what I'm saying. So that's the whole point, is that these people come after Trump saying Trump was falsifying things to get favorable loans and was some sort of a cheat in mortgages. And it's just not true. We went through this with Eric Trump last week on the show, and we'll go through it again, I'm sure, as time goes on, as documented thoroughly in breaking the law. Nothing that was done by Trump where there was not a penny of damages. There was no victim. It was victimless non-crimes. That's what Tish James was trying to get Trump for. All these banks that had done deals with Trump, who should have been the alleged victims here, according to Tish James, all of them thought that Trump was great to work with and wanted to work with him again and didn't think Trump owed him a penny. But Tish James was suggesting that Trump had artificially inflated values of his real estate to get more favorable deals. But the problem is that there was no harm done ever. And then they artificially deflated the value of Trump's properties during the course of the trial. A juryless trial, I might add. So Tish James is now on the run, and she showed up at a Mamdani rally, I think. So I got some Tish James audio for you. Check this out.
You see, I know what it feels like to be attacked for just doing your job. But I also know what it feels like to overcome adversity. And so I stand on solid rock. And
is she adding an affectation? Is she saying solid rock? Like, is she adding, let's hear the rest of the clip, but is she adding some sort of, she loves speaking publicly. You can tell that she loves these rallies, screaming at people.
I will not bow. I will not break. I will not bend. I will not capitulate. I will not give in. I will not give up. You come for me, you gotta come to all of us.
All of us.
All of us. Every single one
all of us.
We're
She's
all
doing
in
it.
this
Together. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's great performance art. Yeah, that was a Mamdani. Well, it's kind of scary in a way, so long as they don't have numbers. I've been saying this is not scary if they don't have numbers, which they don't now. I mean, maybe they do in Manhattan, but you guys gave up on us in California, so I'm giving up on Manhattan temporarily. But I will tell you that the nationally speaking, I mean, it would be scary if we were led by people like that. Because remember, she did try to bankrupt a former president while he was running for president, thus interfering in our democracy by nullifying Trump's ability to run. and she did it with a total bogus pretext and invented new forms of law, novel interpretations of the law to try to bust him. And then, that's how she talks. Remember, she campaigned on getting Trump. That was what she ran on. And then she was elected, and she said immediately, he's going to know my name. So I go through all this in Breaking the Law if you want more details. But overall, that her mortgage dealing, it seems like they got her bad. So they're going to get her on something. So I just don't know what that looks like. But she's going to get a lot of accolades because why? She fights. And that's all the left cares about right now. They only care about, do you fight? Not, do you fight winning causes? They used to care about, do you win? And they don't care about that anymore as much. They'd rather lose at a national level, but feel really vindicated in their fighting. But they just like fighters, and that's it. And that's a great opportunity for us, but I don't want to be too cavalier about it, because these people are, if you think the lawfare it's over. It's just getting going. That was the whole premise of Breaking the Law. I didn't mean to make this a big promoting Breaking the Law day, but it's just the slate of stories that are out there. But that's part of why I wrote it, is that they're not going to stop. That we got a stay of execution in terms of our collective suicide as a society via lawfare, because Trump won. And he only won by the grace of God, because he should have been assassinated in Butler, Pennsylvania, and somehow the bullet merely grazed his ear. The total miracle. So he's here, and so we can't ever let them win again. I hope you all understand that. It's very important to put the Tish Jameses in charge. She could be Attorney General of the United States. That's how they think of it, because the left runs their parties. So they will nominate leftists, particularly for the executive branch, and in most statewide offices, I think in most Senate offices, they're going to be left wingers going to run that party, and this is the type of people they champion. So not an immediate threat, but really scary, kind of scary. She's a scary person. All right. Let's see. Other fun stuff. I've got a couple of fun ones for you. Oh, no, wait a minute. I got one more. I got Obama talking lawfare. This is so fun. He did a podcast of some sort. It was probably Mark Maron's podcast. Mark Maron is a left-wing podcaster who I think is retiring. So, and Obama talking about lawfare. I couldn't resist this clip. Check this one.
We don't want, kangaroo courts and trumped up charges. That's what happens in other places that we used to scold for doing that. We want like our court system and our Justice Department and our prosecutors to be, and our FBI to be, just playing things straight and looking at the facts and not meddling in politics the way we've seen lately.
His vice president became president, Joe Biden. First of all, Obama and Eric Holder accelerated lawfare at a rapid rate, as I write in Breaking the Law. But then his vice president becomes president, and they have 6 different cases where they have novel interpretations of the law that try to create kangaroo courts, not just to go after, first of all, to go after the Republican standard bearer and the former president, President Trump, but also a lot of his supporters, where he's getting his supporters thrown in jail. He's getting attorneys disbarred. He's getting just rank and file conservative voters who are activists thrown in jail for nothing. That's what happened. And it was all started with Barack Obama. He was the one who really put the lawfare on accelerator. And then now he's podcasting with his arms folded and his legs crossed in a chair saying, well, we don't want a kangaroo court. It's amazing. He must not be in touch with reality. I just don't understand it, because the body, you guys are missing it on the streams if you're not seeing his body language. I don't play it again just so you guys see this.
We don't want kangaroo courts and trumped up charges. That's what happens in other places that we used to scold for doing that. We want like our court system and our Justice Department and our prosecutors to be, and our FBI to be, just playing things straight and looking at the facts and not meddling in politics the way we've seen lately.
It doesn't even really fit, because Chuck Schumer has been out there bragging about putting progressive judges on courts, of touting that as an achievement. So you can't have both. You can't say we just want the judges to call balls and strikes, and then also have the longtime Democrat leader of the Senate go out and say that we're very proud of all the left-wing progressives we got put on the court. So this is the thing that I really resent about the left, is how dishonest they are. It's the same reason why I resent the New York Times sometimes more than I resent, left-wing podcasters who at least where they're coming from. It is, even if the left-wing podcasters are more strident, there's something more offensive about not telling you where you come from. And Obama, was one of the people who tried to politicize everything, including law and order, via making Eric Holder his attorney general, who was very aggressive with the way that he applied the law against his political opponents and trying to hold conservatives to a different standard than Democrats in the eye of the law. And then the standard bearer for the Democrats in the Congress openly brags about politicizing the court. And then we're told that we just want judges now to call balls and strikes. No, you want judges to call balls and strikes when you're out of power. When you're in power, you guys wield the law as a political tool. Check out the book, detail after detail, hundreds of examples and all. And so it's sort of pathetic because he knows he can't really do anything. He just can only chat on a podcast right now, which is great. That's where we want him. We got him where we want him. But it's just interesting to see that they're so rudderless or so leaderless. He doesn't even really want to step up and lead the party again. There's no fire in the belly. So it's great, but it's also infuriating because he's just, I'm going to say we need to ramp up political victories. And the recommendation I make towards the end of Breaking the Law, I talk about how we need to make sure that we're appointing conservatives to the bench that have a long track record of commitment to the movement. People who have been part of the conservative movement for a long time and have been effective in it. That's my main criterion for appointments when you're appointing judges and nominating judges, particularly for the Supreme Court, but really all the way down. So that's the best thing you could do. I don't really care what law school you went to. I care whether or not you understand the nature of the fight that we're in, that we're in a race with the left to try to make sure that our people are on the court. But I'll be open with you about that. Is the left open about that? Some of them are, but not on Obama, clearly. All right, I mentioned some fun stuff. The Trump administration has quietly canceled the nation's largest solar project, and this is known as the Esmeralda 7. I think Doug Burgum, Department of Bureau of Land Management, canceled this. This is great news. I just highlight this because it's just great. The solar thing was a big grift, and I'm not anti-solar. I've got solar panels on my house. But I'm saying if we were going to just be able to harness the power of the sun to solve all of our problems, I think we would have done it by now. But we have not. So I don't feel like we're going to. George Stephanopoulos, John Nolte, Breitbart, has called for ABC to lose their broadcast license after Stephanopoulos pulled the plug on an interview with J.D. Vance. He was interviewing Vance, and then ABC cut off Vance's mic and went to commercial after I think Vance called out Stephanopoulos for lying about Tom Homan. And he was about to to attack George Stephanopoulos for having low ratings. I'll read the transcript. I don't have the clip, but the White House border czar Tom Homan was recorded on FBI surveillance tape accepting $50,000 in cash. Did he keep the money or give it back? And Vance says, George, you cover this ad nauseum. Tom Homan did not take a bribe. It's a ridiculous smear. And the reason you guys are going after Tom Homan so aggressively because he's doing the job of enforcing the law. I think it's really preposterous. I know Tom. I think he's a good man. He gets death threats. He gets attacked. He gets constantly threatened by people because he has the audacity to enforce the country's immigration laws. They go back and forth, and then eventually Vance says that Stephanopoulos, he criticized him for having lower viewers, and they cut the mic. So just trying to find small nitpicks to try to cancel people. It's so out now. And Nolte's take is that why are we giving broadcast licenses to people who engage in this behavior? His piece concludes, ABC needs to come to terms with the fact that the time is up for George Stephanopoulos. He's not the cute young guy he was when ABC hired him. He's become a bitter, partisan, aging, dishonest liability to the network. Recall that Stephanopoulos had to pay Trump like $16 million or whatever. Trump brought this up today. He was making fun of him for it because he had lied about Trump's, I think it was the E. Jean Carroll case that he lied about Trump. And because of that, he had to pay Trump a bunch of money. So he's this generation's Dan Rather, a seething loser, so desperate to show them he's making big errors and bringing even more discredit to ABC News brand that's already in the toilet. That's all true. And he says it's long past time to start pulling the broadcast licenses of far left propaganda outlets. I think it makes sense to me. And look, I'm a free speech guy, but as we've discussed more times on this podcast than probably the vast majority of podcasts, the government allocates electromagnetic spectrum to various news outlets. So they're anointing certain outlets with the ability to broadcast with government resources, and ABC is one of them. I don't get electromagnetic spectrum allocated to Breitbart by the government. So it's sort of an endorsement of what ABC is doing that we do this, and why these things are considered to be set in stone. It doesn't make any sense to me. And that is why I think that it's worth considering whether or not it's not permanent, and whether or not there is either an equal amount of spectrum made available to other outlets to compete. But even then, I feel like it just shouldn't be, the government just can't sanction this type of lying and attacking people who, the reason why they're going after Tom Homan is specifically because he's enforcing laws the left does want to enforce, right? All right. One more one that's not fun, disturbing story here. Mitt Romney's lovelorn sister-in-law, reading from the Daily Mail, is found dead at the bottom of a parking garage. This is most interesting to me because it was actually in my neighborhood. So in just north of LA, near a mall that I will say is very close to where I live. And he apparently jumped or fell from a 5-story parking structure. So just a wild one. A little more detail at Breitbart News. I just felt like that was an odd one, and I was just tracking it because just hoping that there wasn't a lot of violent crime in my neighborhood, which I have a neighborhood that is pretty free of that stuff for the most part. So anyway, God rest her soul. Last one for today. I got this one. It's floating around online, but all right. So FIRE, which is the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, they have a chart that's going around showing a rapid decline in students that are not identifying as male or female. So these are people who are refusing to take a gender identity. And the Brown University is tracking similar numbers, and what's Andover? I don't know. But anyway, the 3 surveys, and people have been charting how there's a vast decline in people who are saying that they're non-binary. So this is something that traditionally has been close to 0%, and then it has spiked in recent years, and we're seeing a rapid decline. We're in one survey almost at 10% in 2023 of students not identifying as male or female, which is obviously makes it a cultural contagion. It's not like 10% of the population or 9% of the population was transgender throughout all of humanity. This is a new phenomenon that's taken place, particularly in the West, particularly in affluent countries, particularly in the United States of America. But it's just important to note that it's great to see the decline, and now back down under 4%, and it's just going to decline from there back to whatever is the real number, which will be close to 0, I hope. But just note that we all fell for this social contagion. I mean, we didn't at Breitbart News. I have a clean conscience on this. We never switch pronouns for people in our editorial guidance. But it's just important to note that so many children will have gone through chemical castration. They'll have gone through genital mutilation. They'll have gone through huge psychological trauma. And a lot of them will have had parts of their childhood ripped from them, not just from the chemicals and not just from the surgeries, but the psychological trauma, I feel like, of watching your colleagues and classmates go through this stuff as children. I don't think people are going to fully recover from this. And I just really feel bad for those people who were teenagers in particular during the COVID era. There's just so much craziness during that time. And that virus was bad, but I'll tell you, some of the stuff that were the downstream effects of it seems like they were much worse, because right as when the virus broke out is when we started to see people start identifying as non-binary or the opposite sex. And we're going to see those numbers decline, but we've got to be stronger next time something like this happens. When a clear cultural contagion emerges, we've got to be bolder, we've got to be louder about it. And we can't be tolerant of people who continue to insist that men need to play women's sports. There was a viral clip, I almost played it, but it was kind of dull. But Abigail Spanberger, who's running for governor of Virginia, which was a purple state within my lifetime, even a red state at one point pretty recently. And she's the Democrat frontrunner in that gubernatorial race, and she can't flat out say that men are not women and girls are not boys, and that they should have separate sports for prep sports. I mean, it's just the strain that the Democrat politicians and so much of our mainstream media goes to cater to this very, very, very infinitesimally small population because they're getting controlled by just loud chaos agents within the left-wing movement. It should be one of the historical lessons that we put a marker down. This is a historic moment, the trans contagion and the chaos that it created, and how it seems to be going away very, very quickly. I hope. So we just got to be steadfast here and make sure that we don't take our eye off the ball, and let's put this one to bed. I think the country will be a lot better off for it. And, I got a personal interest here because I want to make sure this is done before my kids get to, puberty. So we're on target to make it, but look, I'm being selfish. I'm just combining the audience that my eldest is 7. I would like to see all this knocked out by the time they get into late middle school, early high school, please. All right. That'll be good for now. A lot going on Breitbart.com. Again, I'm looking forward to that Charlie Memorial coverage, which is starting right about now as I'm wrapping up recording. And we got a big news story at the Breitbart News Foundation that we got going. So those of you who are interested in some of our long form reporting, great way to support us. We got a story on the CCP's United Front Network in America's Heartland. So this is part 3 of a series we got over there. I'll try to get you some details on the show as well down the road, but that's good for now. Thanks, Misty. Thanks, John Cassio, for pulling clips. And thanks to all of you in the audience. See you next time.